Is writing a check to a charity really giving? That's the question we're asking today, and we'll hear from our two guests, Luke Stocking from the Canadian Catholic Organization for Development and Peace, and Brother John Frampton, a Capuchin friar who runs St. Francis Table in Toronto. But we begin with Facebook, which, as you know, we were speaking about 2 weeks ago when we looked at the Holy Father's message for the World Day for Social Communications, and we were looking at the challenges and benefits of Facebook. Well, here is someone who has found a unique way to put Facebook to good use.
Here's a group. Together we can found 100,000 translators and interpreters. And currently we have 972 members, so nearing 1,000. As it says in the information for the group, the purpose of this group is to gather as many professional and student translators of the world. I figured, well, let me start a Facebook group. And I was thinking, yes, with the issue in Haiti, but also beyond that, that there is a huge need for translation. There's so many different languages in the world, and how can people always be able to communicate? Now it's the crisis in Haiti. Tomorrow might be a crisis somewhere else that, there's a need for qualified language professionals to be able to help out. So I set up a group on Facebook called 100,000. Together we can find 100,000 translators and interpreters, right? And we still have a long ways to go to reach that goal, but of the people who have joined, there's been such an overwhelming show of support for Haiti and wanting to do anything and everything possible to be able to help them, on a completely volunteer basis, which is a wonderful thing to see. 4 days after the earthquake in Haiti, I was watching a CNN broadcast, and there was a young girl trapped under the rubble there and crying out, asking for help, and the broadcaster was wondering, well, does anyone know what she's saying? And at that moment it dawned on me, wow, there's all these people in Haiti that need aid who can't communicate with those who are trying to provide the aid. And I said, what can myself as a translator do to help these people in Haiti and those who are trying to help them be able to establish that link and be able to communicate with one another? One of the main projects that has become available is Haitians. They can text into a free number if they have any sort of need, so a medical emergency, lack of food, water, and unsafe conditions, anything like that. But typically they're texting in their own language, which is either Creole or French. And most of the aid-providing agencies are English-speaking. So what this group of translators has done is taken those text messages and translated them into English and sent them on for further processing by, say, the Red Cross or the military. So to date, they've translated about 18,000 to 20,000 messages, text messages from Haitians, which is, a significant contribution to the recovery effort. As a Catholic, a Catholic young person, we're always taught, we're not alone in this world. We're here, we're given the talents and the gifts that God's given us to be able to do something to help those around us in need. Sometimes we think, well, how can I do that concretely on a day-to-day basis? But, by being able to take my translation skills, couple it with the wonders of technology that exists today, I was able, in a very simple way, but in a very real way, to make a difference for the people of Haiti by creating this Facebook group, gathering together professionals of my own profession.
So that's a great example of not just how Facebook can be a useful tool, but also about how we can get creative with our giving. Now that's my perspective. So why don't we bring in our first guest. I'd like you to meet Luke Stocking. He is with the Canadian Catholic Organization for Development and Peace, otherwise known as Development and Peace. Luke, as you hear this story, Nicholas Ferreira, translator on Facebook, what's going through your mind?
Well, the first thing I think is, here's this young man, Nicholas, who has recognized the essence of giving, which is he's looked within himself, what are his skills, what are his gifts, and God asks us to use our gifts to serve, his children, and that's what he's doing. He's recognized this is his gift as a translator, and he's using that, and I think that's a beautiful way. I mean, it's creative, as you say, but it's also not just creative. It's a true giving of self, because this is what he does.
Okay, true giving of self. I'm going to get a little heavy here. Pope Benedict's third encyclical, Caritas in Veritate, heavy.
Yeah.
He says that we're created to love. We have an innate. It's innate in us to love. Therefore, it's innate in us to give. So it's clear in Nicholas's case that he's found his way to give with his talents. For you, Luke Stocking, how does development and peace, I guess, fulfill your own capacity to love and to give?
Thanks for asking that. I think ultimately it comes down to vocation. And for me, I recognized in my life that my vocation was to try and live the social teachings of our faith and to put them into practice. And my current job with Development and Peace, which is inviting all Canadian Catholics to live a life of solidarity with the people of the Global South, affords me that opportunity. So to give of my time, I feel in terms of Nicholas's talents, or to be a translator, I feel some of my talents are to share ideas, to inspire people to take action. And Development and Peace in my current role gives me the opportunity to do that, whether it's inspiring young people in high schools to get involved with social justice initiatives or fundraising.
Right.
So I feel that it's my time and energy.
No, it's good. It's good to be able to work somewhere that actually fulfills that part of our I think it's a need that we have as Christians. Let's look at our question of the week, because that's going to help us focus here. So the question of the week has been on our website for a couple days now, and it is very simple. Is writing a check to a charity really giving? Now, I'm going to read a comment before I ask you your what you think, Luke. We received this comment from Chris Radford. This came through Facebook, coincidentally. It depends upon the spirit in which it was given and who you're donating to. Often finding out more about who you're giving money to is necessary to ensure your giving is actually achieving something good and tangible and not for other purposes. It also depends upon the spirit of those you're giving to. So I guess the idea that we just don't write a check blindly, monthly check to Development and Peace. What do you think? What do you think? Is writing a check, I mean, you rely on donations, so so do we. We rely on donations. So is writing a check really giving?
I think it is in practical terms, but I would agree with that comment in terms of the context, the spirit in which it is given. In the recent gospel reading, Jesus talks about fasting in secret. Well, there's also giving in secret, and I always admire people who give anonymously. That there is a true gratuitousness, and Benedict speaks about gratuitousness in his encyclical, and I think that really, when we speak of what is the spirit of giving, that's an important part of it for sure.
Okay, the spirit of giving. Let me just ask you briefly before we run out of time. Development and Peace is the official branch, correct me if I'm wrong, of the Catholic bishops for development and for fundraising, and you also have a very good relationship with the Canadian government, correct? Your Lenten goal this year is $10 million. That's a lot of money.
It is.
How will that money, or what are your hopes with how that money is going to be put to use?
Well, we have over 150 different organizations throughout Africa, Asia, and Latin America who rely on that money to be able to carry out the development work in their own countries. And I've had the chances to see firsthand some of the examples of that. In Zambia, in the Philippines. I was in the Philippines. There's an organization called the Urban Poor Association helping people who are having their homes destroyed, and to make sure that they would be able to get shelter, be able to have a livelihood after. I mean, it is, we say it's life and death, and it really is, the money that we receive for the people that we support throughout Africa, Asia, and Latin America, it is life and death.
So if people want to know specifically how the money is used, they can get that information at your website?
Correct, they can get that information at our website.
Yeah, we'll let you know how you can, what that website is. When we come back, we'll also have a chance to meet our second guest, Brother John Frampton, a Capuchin friar. He runs the St. Francis Table in Toronto, and we'll hear some more comments from you, our viewers, so stay tuned.
Let us know your perspective. Email us at perspectives@saltandlighttv.org or reach us by mail, Perspectives at Salt and Light Television, 114 Richmond Street East, Toronto, Ontario, M5C 1P1, or call us toll-free at 1-888-302-7181. Let your perspective be heard.
On January 12, 2010, a 7.0 earthquake struck Port-au-Prince, Haiti.
This catastrophe has affected over 3 million lives.
And officials say there could be as many as 200,000 dead.
That's 67 times the amount of precious lives that were lost in 9/11.
That's like lining up 2,222 school buses full of people.
That's 3 times more than those that will attend this year's Super Bowl.
I will never grasp the magnitude of these numbers.
I will never understand how many mothers,
Fathers,
daughters,
and sons were affected.
but since God is our Father, each individual is our brother or sister.
may we live alongside our Haitian brothers and sisters, united in prayer.
United in prayer.
United in prayer. I love that idea that when one part of the body suffers, the whole body suffers, and when one part of the body is honored, the whole body is honored. We are joined now at our table by Brother John. He is a Capuchin friar. He runs the St. Francis Table in Toronto. Brother John, I wanted to ask you that I was struck by that ad that we just saw, but also the canticle of Zechariah, the antiphon this morning in the office. Says that when you meet someone in need of clothing, do not turn away. And it got me thinking, well, if I always gave my clothing every time I see someone in need of clothing, I'm going to go broke. So, and this is something that you do every day. Not that you give your clothing necessarily, but in terms of giving food. When is giving actually not helping?
I think as long as we know it's going to good use. There are ways of abusing any system. I think it's trying to differentiate. Sometimes it's a very fine line, the fact that a person is in need. I know that in my ministry, anybody who is in our lineup is certainly not turned away. We are a restaurant for the poor, and we consider those who line up in need of food. So
Right.
there's really no one turned away.
No, but I know in your case you also try to build a relationship with your clients. We can call them clients.
Patrons.
Patrons.
Yeah.
And so that would there be situations where you have to turn someone away?
Yeah. I mean, if my role as animator, responsible for the ministry, I'm to see the face of Christ in each patron.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's hard.
Yes.
Somebody shows up drunk or stoned, and
Yeah.
they're not in a good space. Then I have to draw the line and say, I'm sorry, but I have other people that I'm responsible for, and you can't get in if you're ready to cause trouble.
Luke, I'm just thinking very specifically at a small scale, but at a grander scale for development and peace. Can you think of a situation where development and peace might have to withhold funding because it's actually not helping or it's being abused?
Oh yeah, sure. And I mean, we very strict, reporting guidelines, procedures. Our program officers. I mean, the kind of stringency that our partners, the people that receive funds from us, are put through in terms of reporting where those dollars go, and the work of our program officers to make sure that what it's being used for is consistent with our mission, which of course is the gospel. Right?
Yeah, and I guess that goes to show that we we don't just give blindly. We do have a responsibility to give responsibly. I just want to get to the question of the week again, because I know you're dying to share your opinion. You also rely on donations. So is writing a check really giving? Here's another comment that we received from Stephanie Romano, and she says that I feel like writing a check to charity is part of giving. You are offering a financial sacrifice to someone who needs it more, but in turn, you're not affected by it because it doesn't require any physical sacrifice. I think that those who make physical sacrifice, something tangible, active, and concrete, feel the essence of giving more clearly than those who offer monetarily. Brother John, you not only rely on donations, but you rely on volunteers.
Yeah.
So how do you respond to
I agree partially. I think that our ministry has been successful because of our volunteer sector. I use the term blessed when I speak about our volunteers. I use the term blessed when I speak about our corporate, our community partners. I also use the term blessed when I speak about our donors. Our donors are the backbone. We have no fundraising appeal. We have our donors who support us financially. And I think that if that's what they can do to be part of a ministry like St. Francis Table, then that's vital. That is essential. And I think, is there charity in writing a check? I certainly believe so, and I think that St. Francis Table is a testament to that.
Now, the Holy Father in Caritas in Veritate also talks about charity and dignity. And I'm intrigued by that, and I know that is it fair to call it it's not a soup kitchen? I mean,
a restaurant.
It's a restaurant. Your patrons, you call them patrons, and they pay for the service that they received. Why is that?
Just to instill a sense of greater dignity and self-worth among our patrons. When we first got prior to opening in 1987, there was a survey done that indicated food service ministry to the poor as #1 need. Those who gathered at that time decided Toronto did not need another soup kitchen, but a food service ministry provided a little bit more dignity and self-worth. And with everybody paying $1, everybody is equal.
Right.
So we don't say that a senior versus somebody with addiction problems are not equal. Everybody pays, everybody is equal.
And now, if someone is not able to pay, do you have a way to?
We have a number of agencies that buy meal vouchers, so they're available in the neighborhood. And also, if somebody is referred for a first time, somebody just out of jail, or a new client for another agency who's referred, we don't refuse.
Yeah. Now, let me ask.
In fact,
go
if I could
ahead.
say something about dignity, I think when Development and Peace was founded in 1967, there was a conscious decision that we would never use any image of a person from Africa, Asia, Latin America that would portray them as helpless, there was going to be recognition that they were hardworking people who in need of solidarity, in need of support. But you can look at every single image that Development and Peace has ever produced, and you will never find that sort of the pot-belly, starving, hand outstretched image. There's always images of people working together, people gathered, supporting one another, very human, consistent with what is basically the fundamental principle of our Catholic social teaching, which is the inherent dignity of every human being.
Well, let me ask you this, because the encyclical also talks about charity and justice. And it makes me think that, does that mean that charity is not giving people something that they don't deserve, rather giving them something that is rightfully theirs?
I struggle with that a lot, I don't know, but in terms of, if I reflect on everything that I've ever given, has it actually been charity, or have I simply been giving injustice? Because our catechism clearly says what is owed in justice cannot be given in charity.
Yeah.
It's I
think as well, as long as there is charity and justice, my role is to see the face of Jesus. My role is not to play God.
Right.
I'm not the judge. I'm not the one who decides yes or no. So I think as long as I can communicate with our patrons as someone equal, I'm no better than they are. We all have needs. Mother Teresa, Jean Vanier calls the poor those in need. We're all in need from time to time. I think that we need to remember that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: how, because we're in Lent now, so maybe this is appropriate. How are we called to prepare ourselves, or are we, before we give? Like, is there a process there that should be happening in terms of our spiritual development, or spiritual, what drives the giving?
I think during Lent, we'll fast, we'll give things up, we'll do some extra good perhaps. I think we need to find out what we're comfortable in, what we're able to do, what we're comfortable, how we're comfortable in doing what we do. So I think whether you're writing a check or providing some service, I think it all goes hand in hand. But I think we need to realize that this is what I'm able to do, and go do it.
Even if it's just writing a check?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I think without financial support, our agency would not survive.
Yeah.
So as I said earlier, it's vital to our existence and vital to our ministry. And I think as long as people are supporting a ministry, there's no harm in check writing.
Right, Luke?
I think also, I mean, there is a when we say write a check, we're assuming, people, there's a kind of some assumption people with money giving and not, but there are people who write checks who are, who are totally consistent with the widow's mite,
Yes, that's all they have.
That's all they have, or that's the spirit in which it is being done. So, but in terms of, Lent, I think we're moving towards Easter, towards the resurrection, towards new life, and the whole process of Lent is a conversion experience. And I think that in terms of, you ask what spiritual preparation are we doing, it's a constant examining of ourselves for how are we turning in what way. And is the giving that we're doing or the fasting that we're doing, is it facilitating that continual turning towards God that will ultimately culminate in the celebration of Easter?
Nice, thank you. Well, that's a good segue because it's time for our last words, and we'd like to leave the last words to the one who is the Word. When you are at Mass on Sunday, you will hear this gospel. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but part of the gospel from Luke chapter 4, verse 9 to 12. And he took him to Jerusalem and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here. For it is written, He will give His angels charge of you to guard you. And on their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone." And Jesus answered him, "It is said, you shall not tempt the Lord your God." Let's start with Luke.
Well, what a passage. I mean, this is, one of several temptations that Jesus experiences in the desert, and we speak about spiritual preparation, Here he is preparing for his ministry. I think it's the whole temptation is such a beautiful reflection on Jesus's deep faith in his Father. And if we think about, in terms of giving and Lent, that is how rooted in faith are we? And I think what he shows there, Henry Nouwen has a beautiful passage of the image of a fist clenching onto a coin. And you can't let go of it.
Yes.
And really what Jesus is showing in this passage is this opening, this opening to the trust that is saying, I don't need to test. I don't need to, So I think it's a beautiful passage.
Yeah, it is. It's the Word of God. Brother John?
When I read it, I kind of take a look at the story of Jesus, and again, as I said earlier, I'm not out to play God, and then the story of the job the angels do. I think that is important for us. We can see ourselves as brothers and sisters of Jesus. We can see ourselves as sons and daughters of God. But the angels have a place in our existence as well. And I think that as long as we're supportive of one another as brothers and sisters, as long as we continue supporting the ministries that we support, we'll be okay.
We'll be okay. Thank you so much. Very inspiring words, not just to help us this week, but I think for the 40 days of Lent. We've been speaking to Luke Stocking from Development and Peace, the Canadian Catholic Organization for Development and Peace, and Brother John Frampton. He's a Capuchin friar. He runs the St. Francis Table in Toronto. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your perspectives with us. And thank you for being with us. Remember to visit our website, saltandlighttv.org/perspectives, so you can share your comments and your perspectives with us. So good night, and God bless you and your home.